I recently, a couple weeks ago, had the good fortune of having just really a fun, interesting conversation with an elderly gentleman who was 10 years my senior. And we just had a great, wandering, meandering conversation about a lot of things. We both had played football when we were younger, so there's great old war stories about playing football. We both like the same stand-up comedians that we would see on Comedy Central who had their own shows. And I can't repeat any of those, but we had a good laugh about that. And then, as old men tend to do, is we began to talk about health and medical things, because that's what we do. And we complain about aches and sores and whatever it is that we're dealing with. And he talked about having double rotator cuff surgery, obviously not at the same time. And I was really interested because I can feel mine. I had an MRI done once, and I know that both of mine are slightly torn and trying to nurse along as much as I can. But he talked about how difficult it was, and I knew that rehab is just the worst for rotator cuff. But then he said something really interesting that led to a different conversation, and that was he had the dominant side done first. He had his right one did first. And he said that he didn't realize how much he couldn't do with his non-dominant hand. And I'll spare you the specifics and details of that conversation. But it was kind of interesting because he said, like, I just went through life and I just did the things that I needed to do. And then when I realized that I couldn't do things like I normally did the normal way, I had to retrain and reteach myself for a period of time until I was able to heal. And we had a good laugh about it. But it reminded me of kind of the theme of Colossians that we're studying for the month of June, but also this upcoming Sunday in particular. And that is this tension, almost conflict that exists between living in the present, being in the moment, living in the now, doing the now things, and setting ourselves up, preparing ourselves for the future. The reason why there's a tension is because a lot of times there's not a lot of overlap between what those two look like. That sometimes we can be so in the now and being in the moment and enjoying life as we're in it that the future comes and we're completely unprepared for it. He kind of discovered that too. But the opposite is true too, and you know what that is, that sometimes you're so obsessed and caught up with making sure you create this future that you miss being in the moment, and you don't enjoy all the things that are happening around you. So it feels like the two of them are in tension. And we laughed about this when it came to him having to deal with rotator cuff surgery, but it's a real tension that exists. And what was interesting is not only that we had this conversation, but this particular Sunday, the one coming up, we're going to talk about not only the tension between two topics in the scripture that we're going to deal with that pertain to this, but just this general pull between being in the now, doing the now things, being in the moment, and setting ourselves up for a future, because they feel like they're in conflict with each other. They don't have to be. And there's a way to do this. And so we're going to look at scripture and look at this truth about creating this life in the moment and being present to where we are that sets us up for the future. They don't have to be opposite. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. The two of them can be fused and you can point them in the same direction. So that's going to be the topic for this Sunday. Now we will be gathering in person. We'll be taking your temperature, we're requiring masks, we're going to move you to seats where we're physically distancing. So if you feel comfortable, if you want to get out, we invite you, join us. If you're still not quite ready and you want to do the live stream, we wholeheartedly consider you a part of our church. You worship with us just like those who were there physically. So whether you want to join us physically or join us online, we know you're there. So this Sunday, a felt tension between the present and the future, but not necessarily a natural conflict between the two. And we're going to look at how to do both of well. So join us either way, physically or online, and we'll see you Sunday. Have a great week.